This, ladies and gentlemen, is football.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Total A-Leagues. I'm Vince Rugari. Great to have your company again alongside the great Tommy Oar. Tommy, what's cracking?
Great to be back.
A lot to talk about, man. We've got a huge show. Look, the transfer window is about to open in the A-League, so there's plenty to discuss around that. We've got a big guest coming up. Melbourne Victory, Arthur Dilles. What's going on there? Is he under pressure? Adelaide United, Adrian Segecic hat-trick. I haven't even touched on Ruben Zadkovic. What's going on there? I mean, there's heaps, man. So can't wait to get stuck into it. And we'll start with the guest that I mentioned, Tommy, your old coach in your old hood, John Aloisi, the coach of Western United these days. John, absolute pleasure to have you on the show with us.
Thanks for having me on, Vince.
No worries, John. It seems like maybe 5 minutes ago, it feels like that you were in a press conference getting grilled by two members of the Lynch journalistic clique. But you weren't a happy man that day. But things have turned around a lot since then. You guys are on fire, taking some big scalps and playing some wonderful football. What's gone so right, I guess, in the last few weeks?
Well, I thought we started the season really well. We played away to Wellington. We drew there, but we probably outplayed them, and especially that final 30 minutes, we were really on top. And then against the Wanderers again, we should have got the win at home. And then just before that Victory game where I got grilled by the father and son Lynchers. No, they were just asking normal questions. It was more me that had my back up. I was angry because we'd started the season well in terms of performances. I wasn't happy with the way we performed against Victory that night. I thought that we were afraid. I don't know if it was the boys were afraid because it was Melbourne Victory, but it was one of those ones that I wasn't happy. I let them know that we want to play our football. Doesn't matter who we're playing against, whether it's Sydney FC, Melbourne Victory, or Perth Glory. We have to make sure that we're ready to play. First of all, win that battle, be competitive, and then play our football, be brave on the ball. And I didn't think that night we were. And the response from the players was outstanding. We played MacArthur the next game. We performed well, didn't get the win, but since then we've been on a great run and got the results with the performances to go with it.
Johnny, you scored 16 goals in your last 6 games, and watching the games, it looks like there's been a lot more effort from your players to get in the box and kind of more attacking intent. Has there been any kind of tactical changes from you, or is it more a kind of fitness thing, or is it something that the players are developing a kind of better understanding with each other? Like, what do you put that down to?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both with the players, certain players getting better fitness. Noel Botic was out for 6 months with a navicular injury, so he didn't really have a pre-season. Hiroshi Basuki was getting to know his teammates, and then you have Reece Bozanowski that was out injured for a period at the start of the season. So all these players are gaining their fitness and confidence. And then when you start scoring goals, we were always getting bodies in the box, Tommy. We were always getting good positions. We just weren't taking our chances. And now we're actually taking our chances. And I don't even know if that's a chance, that bicycle kick. That was incredible.
Pretty good, huh? That's a good example of another thing that's happening with your team at the moment, John. You're scoring some late goals, late winners, which is a fantastic characteristic for any team to have. What do you think that's down to? Is that an attitude thing? Is that a physical thing that they're suddenly able to push longer? I don't know. What's behind that?
Look, yeah, physical is definitely part of it. Belief is another part. But I think you might remember last year, a lot of the younger players played against Melbourne Victory, and we were 1-0 up until the 92nd minute, and we ended up losing 2-1. They scored 2 goals in extra time, and it was a good learning experience for them. And so this year, the tides have turned. We've got that belief. We're the ones that are able to run all over teams. The subs make a big difference when they come on. They give you energy, and they just feel that they're never done. We've scored 8 goals now in the last 15 minutes, only conceded 1. So that just goes to show that the belief in the players and to keep pushing, not to sit back, to keep going, and that's why we've been able to get the results.
Johnny, big game this weekend against the Jets, obviously playing at home. Finally, you've kind of got a more established home this season in Ironbark Stadium. Firstly, how's that been, and how's the team looking for the game this weekend?
It's been excellent. It's been a game changer for us as a team, as a club, to have our own home. We moved in there late last year. We already experienced the difference. Not only the games, but just the training that we're training out of there every day. We can pick and choose what time we train, because when you're using someone else's facility, you have to go by what they want. Yeah. So we feel like we're really at home. We've only played 3 games there this season, and we've got now, out of our next 13 games, we've got 8 there. So we want to make it into a real fortress. We want to make it that teams hate coming there, and try and make it a special occasion for all our supporters, and get that and build that connect with the community out there, because that's what it's really all about for us.
John, just wanted to ask as well about your squad, and I guess the amount of young players that are in it. I remember, I suppose, when Tommy was playing for you in Brisbane Roar, you had quite an old squad. You got criticised a little bit for that, probably a little bit by me too, but it's a different story here now with Western United, because you've got like predominantly young players and not that many senior players around them, and yet they're playing fantastic football. So how have you been able, I guess, to get the most out of those young players when you don't necessarily have a whole heap of, experienced pros around them?
Funny, because when I was at Brisbane Roar, there was a period there where I did have quite a few young players in Borrello and James McLaren that were just bursting onto the scene, Dimi Petrados. So we did bring through a few young players that. So I've had experience of actually helping young players come through and trying to build something, but you still need some experience around them to give them that balance. And I think Ibasuki's really helped Noel Botic and the other attacking players around in Wallati and in Luke Vickery and Grimaldi, and these players here learn a lot off of Hiroshi, and also on the field he calms them down, and he knows their roles, they know their roles, but he also just helps them to understand that not to panic in certain situations. And at the back, we've got Tomoki Imai, who is really helping young Dylan Leonard, who's only 17 years old, and in midfield, Angus Thurgate next to Reece Bozanowski. So if you get that balance right, those younger players can really thrive, and they're doing so well for us this season, and we still think there's a lot left in them.
Bloody journos. Don't listen, do they?
I played like I moved like an old player, but I wasn't actually that old when I was working with Johnny.
You're a young retiree as well, I've told you that before. John, we really appreciate your time, mate. We'll leave it there. Good luck for the game on Friday and the rest of the season.
Thanks, boys. Thanks for having me on.
Great
good coach.
Chat.
Good to catch up as well. Like, I think we're going to talk about an underrated coach in the A-League later on, but I feel like he doesn't get the raps he deserves. And I really hope Western United continue this, because it's going to be good for the overall game really in Australia for some of these young players, if they can do what they're doing now consistently for a long time.
Absolutely.
Happy days.
Yeah.
Not so happy days for Melbourne Victory, so they're on the other side of a Western United comeback, and it's interesting with Arthur Dillers, right? Like, he's now been in the chair for a decent period of time. 5 games, 2 losses, 3 draws, 0 wins.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, you don't like XG. We've established this personally. But the XG suggests, so they've got 4, and this is in that period, 8.74 goals against 5.84. So that suggests that they've been unlucky in front of goal and they should have scored more and all that sort of stuff. Are you buying that? I don't know.
No, I think that if you look deeper than the results, I think their performances haven't been bad. I think that they haven't taken their chances, and they've had some individual mistakes defensively that have cost them. Also, against the likes of Sydney FC, the red card in that game kind of killed the game for them, and it was really hard to come back from that. So there are some kind of mitigating circumstances, but I think overall with their squad quality, to go 5 games in a row without a win, I'm sure is something that is playing on their minds, because I think they have too much quality to not be getting results, essentially.
To what degree he's under pressure is an interesting question. There's rumours that he's signed a longer-term contract than what has been publicly put out there. We don't know yet.
Yep.
It's a huge job, obviously, Melbourne Victory, and lots of pressure. Let's just hear a little bit now from Arthur Dillers about, I guess, the circumstances that Melbourne Victory are dealing with right now.
In hindsight, to bring off an attacker and put on a defender, would you have done that again?
Yeah, I think so. I think in the end, we knew that they were going to start, crossing balls into the box, getting wide areas and deliver a lot of crosses. That they're a type of team that does that, especially at the end then when they're a goal down. So we anticipated that. But in the end, that final goal, we've got 7 players in the box, they've got 4. So, it's a tough one to swallow.
A club like Melbourne Victory, with the expectations that it has 5 games without a win, we haven't had any official word about your future yet. Are you feeling any pressure surrounding your role in the face of this?
I think there's any coach at Melbourne Victory's got pressure every day.
Huge game for him this weekend as well, Tommy, away to Adelaide United.
It is, and things can change in football so quickly. And I think that there has been enough kind of bright moments in their performances. I wouldn't be surprised if they go on to win the game this weekend. And I think that if they can get a couple of good results or string a few results together, things can change very quickly for him as a manager as well. And I think the fans could have a very different, kind of opinion in a couple of weeks. But at the same time, there's a lot of work to do for them.
A bad loss against Adelaide as well would put things the other way, I guess, a little bit, especially, that's just such a strong rivalry. For me, it's, one of the best 2-3 rivalries. Like, it's really, as a South Australian, I feel like that rivalry is, maybe if you're not from Victoria or SA, you don't understand how intense that is.
No, but I mean, early A-League, I think you think back about all those big games and there was so many red cards. I think of Ross Aloisi and, or the red card, obviously.
A lot of bad memories for me personally, as a young Adelaide fan.
No, I think of that game and I think fiery, kind of aggressive encounter, and it's always one of the matches you look out for when the draw comes out, for sure.
Well, the interesting thing about Adelaide is that they've not done too well at home this season at all. So they've won 1 of 5 at home this season and won all 6 of their away games, which is, I don't know, how do you interpret that? Because it does suggest, imagine if they keep their away form up and sort out their home form.
I think if you look at the home games though, like they have actually performed pretty well in those games, but you look at the game against the Mariners and the game against Sydney FC not long ago where Douglas Costa, like a late brace, salvaged that game for Sydney FC. I think their performances have been good. They've just showed a little bit of a lack of resilience towards the end of the game to see it out. I think that's been the only thing at home that's let them down. I don't think they've performed badly, but I think this weekend, Melbourne Victory will be a desperate Melbourne Victory. I think that defensively, Adelaide's going to have to be very strong to keep them out.
Yeah, they've got some good problems as well, some problems that other A-League clubs would be dying to have at the moment. Let's hear now from Carl Viet, the Adelaide United coach, and the dilemma he's got with his 2 strikers, Archie Goodwin and Luka Jovanovic.
Him and Archie, 2 young, hungry number 9s. We started the start of the season with Luka, and then Archie's come in and done it exceptionally well. So they're both pushing each other, and that's all we can ask from them. So there's going to be moments where Luka will be starting games, and Archie will have to come off the bench and do what Luka has done the last 2 weeks for us. So it's a credit for both of them to be working this hard and getting their opportunities and taking them when they come.
I think, if you rewind a few weeks and, look at Jovanovic and how he was left out of the squad, and, also Carl Viet made some kind of frosty post-game comments about how he wasn't following instructions on the pitch. I mean, what a few weeks he's had to kind of crawl back into the equation, and the fact we're even having this discussion about who starts up front shows how well he's performed in recent weeks and how important his goals were. So I think it is going to be interesting. I think reading between the lines, I wouldn't be surprised if Jovanovic does get the nod in this game.
Yeah, half the league would kill to have one of those players, I reckon, and it's just a good situation where you've got 2 blokes competing for one position, and that will surely only lift their levels. And they're both young, they're both Aussie, a bit like what I was saying earlier.
Yeah,
that's great.
Exactly.
That's great for the Socceroos.
And number 9s too. Not many number 9s, as we know, obviously in Australian football and in the A-League, and for them to have 2 on their books is great for Adelaide.
Yeah. Speaking of great for Adelaide, Melbourne City, another South Australian coach at the helm there. We've now spoken about 3 of them, and I didn't even try. That's just happened. But they're now top of the table, which is amazing. And then, I mentioned before about underrated coaches. For me, Aurelio Vidmar, people forget that when he was Adelaide United coach back in the day, he brought through some of the best talents in the league. At that time, I'm thinking of Nathan Burns, Bruce Jitte, Matthew Leckie. Now he's in charge of a Melbourne City team that, obviously they've got half a team out, but look at who stepped in and how seamlessly they've done that.
Absolutely. I think that, I worked with Vidi in my career and I always really enjoyed working with him. He's got such a good manner about him. He doesn't get angry very easily, but it's similar to John Aloisi, is that when he does, you really notice. And if you rewind to after the Melbourne derby where, against Victory, obviously Melbourne City were very poor earlier in the season, and he was very unaccepting of that in the post-game press conference. Since that game, they've kind of, changed the way they've played, and obviously with a lot of setbacks, with the amount of injuries they have, I think it'd be very easy for him to come out and be using that as an excuse, but he's not being using it as an excuse at all, and any time he's kind of asked about the young players, he kind of diverts the attention away from that. So he's doing a fantastic job, and if you look at how they're performing on the pitch, I think they're a very balanced team. I think they attack well, they defend well, they're very organised, and I think they're going to be there or thereabouts at the end of the season.
I think you're right. Let's hear a little bit now from Aurelio Vidmar.
the moment for us at the moment is very good. It's positive, and I think our leaders here at the club have also tried to keep a lid on it. Leading with Aziz and the other senior boys, we haven't achieved anything. We're in a good moment. We're top of the table for the next couple of hours, more than likely. And we get to come back into work on Monday. It is absolutely normal to get carried away at some stage. I won a championship at 19 years of age, and I thought, well, this is easy, my first year. And then the next year and the year after, you get smashed in the face. It doesn't work like that. And you've always got to come to work. You've always got to sweat. You've got to do all the things to make you very, very, very good on every given day.
Hell of a game they got coming up as well against Auckland. So that's first versus third, although it seems like bloody half the competition is potentially... It's one of the mad things about the A-League, right?
Yeah.
It's like half the competition could win it.
And every game matters and actually has significant kind of repercussions for the table. So it's great.
With Auckland, I mean, we early on in this show, the early weeks, we were talking about the best things in sliced bread, et cetera, et cetera. What an expansion team. And we always, I guess we're talking about that in the back of our minds with a little bit of what happens when they reach the sort of the grind rounds of the league, when certainly for their case, they're travelling more. They hadn't really gone outside of Auckland much at all, or New Zealand in the first weeks, and the weekend just gone to Perth, which is, I don't know the stats, but surely the longest. I mean, the distance derby, the old one, was, I think, close to the longest domestic trip in international football. Yeah. This one definitely is now, I think, by just that little bit extra.
Exactly.
That's got to mess with you though, man.
Yeah.
You would know as well, it's not the same in international football when you travel with the Socceroos, but we're talking their body clocks are well out of whack.
I think if you look at how they started that game, I think it definitely did affect them for the first kind of 20, 30 minutes. Because in that game against Perth on the weekend, they were really slow out of the blocks, and Corrick obviously touched on that in the post-game press conference. But I think that it's two sides to it, because on one hand, it is a big disadvantage for them, having to travel all the way to Perth, but it's also a big disadvantage for teams having to go to Auckland every second week. And so I think it depends on which kind of way you look at it. I'm sure Steve Corica won't be accepting that as an excuse. It's just the reality of playing for a team, either for Perth or for Auckland. And I think that there's definitely some learnings they'll have to adapt to quickly in order to improve.
Did he accept that as an excuse? Let's find out.
We weren't ready for the start, even though we've gave ourselves the best preparation. We were here a couple of days to make sure time difference is a big problem for us, but there's no excuses really.
There's your answer.
I mean, the time difference is pretty significant, but I think it kind of resembles international football a little bit more than club football, that one-off game, and I think that he would have expected a better performance from them in that one.
They got no Hiroki Sakai as well against City as well. He's got a concussion, so that's interesting. He's been a super player for them. So massive game. Can't wait to watch it. Yeah. The young players just keep on killing it in this competition at the moment. One of the highlights of the weekend for me, probably for you, probably for anyone who has two eyes and watched the A-League on the weekend, was Adrian Segecic coming off the bench and scoring a hat-trick, man. I mean, I've thought this kid had something about him for a little while now. The evidence is now starting to mount. Last season he spent it on loan in the second division in the Netherlands, and he's come back. And he just seems more hardened, more, I don't know.
He's got a grip between his teeth as well. He's almost got a point to prove every time he's on the pitch. The thing I like about him, if you look before he scored his first goal in this game, he actually missed a huge chance, and it didn't affect him. And the other thing I like is how he hounds defenders. He's so kind of relentless with his energy, and I think that for Sydney, every time he's come on, he's been almost a revelation. And 3 fantastic goals. I mean, that third goal there was, probably the goal of the round, I think. So he's been fantastic, and I think for Sydney perspective, if he continue this form, then it's going to be great for them.
Loves a celly. Yeah, like a lot.
He does.
But you know what, man? If you're scoring a hat tricks and you're waiting until the second half to do the night, then it's okay with me. I reckon he's sort of learned a little bit about that. Let's hear a little bit now from him. He spoke after the game on the weekend to Tara Rushton.
Obviously, for me, it was massive to go overseas and get a lot of game time overseas, especially playing every 3 days, and to come back here and use that experience. Look, I've never felt so confident stepping on the pitch and so relaxed. So I definitely think going over there and coming back has been a massive experience booster for me to come here and get the job done.
So the interesting thing about him, Tommy, is that he is off contract at the end of this season, which doesn't sound great for Sydney FC because it seems like they might lose him for free potentially. Apparently, from people I've been speaking to, he might sign an extension, he might not.
Yeah.
They might sell him in January, they might not. If he was to leave at the end of the season, though, and walk, they would be entitled to training compensation, which I think a lot of fans probably not aware of. Some clubs up until last few years in Australia weren't even aware of it, to be honest.
And that can be significant.
It can be, and because he's been on their books for a long time, I think he joined them like as a young teenager. That tallies up with the rather complicated calculations of how much money they get. I think there's no bad scenario here for them. They either keep him, they either sell him for more than what they'd get for training compo, or he walks and they get a good amount.
It has been a kind of a theme for Sydney FC, and they've always found it difficult to keep their promising young attackers because they always, Sydney FC is known exactly.
Great example.
Because they're known for obviously getting the higher profile names, which we all love. But one of the negative consequences of that is them not getting the starting minutes that they would like. But I think that he has put his foot forward to be starting matches from now, and it'll be interesting to see what way that goes.
Very much so. So Brisbane. I don't even... it's tough, right? They're obviously not in a great spot. Off the field, that seems to be impacting them on the field a little bit. Ruben Segecic is still there. With all due respect, don't know why. I'm just not seeing anything really to suggest that there's reason to keep faith in this project, and you can only assume from some of the things you hear a little bit is that the reason he's there is because they don't want to pay him out, which is pretty grim. Yeah,
I think if you look at their performances, it's not like they're performing really well and haven't had the rub of the green and have been, playing really positive attacking football. I think their football's become much more negative in recent weeks. And I think last week against Melbourne City, they had more possession than Melbourne City, but in 90 minutes did not create a single chance, or big chance, I should say. They had 3 kind of half shots at goal. And I think that if you look at the players they got on their books, they got the likes of Ben Halloran, Jay O'Shea, Florin Berengay. These are good players and they're capable of creating and scoring goals. So I think that, there are serious questions that have been asked, and I think that, the club's not heading in a good direction and things will have to change very quickly for them.
One thing that does look like it's about to change is Thomas Waddingham. The transfer window here in Australia opens on the 16th. There's been rumours about what's going to happen with him. Are they going to keep him, try to re-sign him to a longer-term contract and sell him for more? Do they sell him now? It looks like he's going to, all the reports suggest he's going to be moving to Portsmouth, and Ruben Segecic, after the game on the weekend, even basically admitted that without saying which club it is, but he acknowledged that, yes, there's a sale impending.
Those rumours are true, and there's, like I've been saying for a few weeks, there's been a lot of interest around Tommy, and rightfully so, and not going to talk about the inner workings of that deal, but let's just say it's a positive for Tommy and his career, and it's a positive for our club financially.
Well, 10 News Brisbane reported yesterday that it was Portsmouth that he's off to. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, there's been a couple of offers, to be honest, and until it's concrete, I'm not really going to comment on who that is.
So the boys from our brother show, I guess you could call it, sibling show, I don't know. A-League Download spoke about this on Monday as well, and here's what they had to say.
Interesting rumours about Waddingham.
Yes.
Aren't there? Because you sort of think, I'm just trying to think, he's rumoured to be going to Portsmouth. I think it's a really interesting move because the Championship's a really tough league.
It is.
And we've talked about his potential, and you can see he's got the potential. There is no way of knowing, is there? Until you get there and you go and you get a run of games.
For me, he hasn't done enough here. I would love him to stay here for like 1 or 2 more years and really cement himself, become one of the best strikers, in the league, and then, threatening Socceroos and then you go. But fair play to him if there's a bit of money, whatever involved, and people in his ear. Who knows?
I do kind of agree with Tommy Sorensen. I think, I think that there are still question marks around him. He still has a lot to learn, but at the same time, as a footballer, you don't know when these opportunities are going to come back or if they're going to come back around again. And if an opportunity presents itself to go to a huge club like Portsmouth, I can understand completely why he would jump at that.
Yeah. What was the calculation for you when you moved to FC Utrecht from Brisbane Roar? You were younger. You played fewer games than he had. How did you know it was the right time?
I think I was already in the Socceroos, and I just went to the 2010 World Cup. So I think that going to the national team, I had the national team coach kind of pushing me and saying, this is a good stepping stone for you. So I was kind of being guided from other parties, I guess you could say. I'm not sure, obviously, I'm not privy to what the situation is with him in terms of those types of things, but, I don't think he's in the Socceroos discussion seriously yet or anything like that. But at the same time as well, sometimes I think it'd be unfair to expect him to go to Portsmouth now, and if that's where he ends up, and kind of, start the ground at 100 miles an hour and be playing every game and scoring goals. I think that it will take time, and for him to go over at this age, he probably has a little bit of time.
You need to know what the fee is as well to make a proper judgment as to whether this is the right decision for the club at least. But for him, the concern I have is that, just a little bit too raw, and also Portsmouth, they're 21st in the championship, so they're not in the relegation zone.
They're not going to be playing beautiful football. It's going to be about survival.
And they're 3 points off the bottom right now. So it looks like they're going to have a dicey second half of the season. And are those the circumstances when you want to try young players, particularly strikers?
Exactly.
I'm not sure. So if that happens, I hope it works out, basically.
Yep, of course.
As I mentioned, the transfer window opens on the 16th. That's Thursday, closes February 12. Tommy, it's going to be pretty busy, I reckon. There's a few things I can talk about here. Ariath Piol from your former club, Macarthur FC, I think he's going to be heading to Real Salt Lake of Major League Soccer, which is an interesting move. But for me, the most encouraging thing about that is that the fee is going to be about $500,000 US, which is about 800 our money.
The exchange rate's doing favours for us.
Well, it's not just that, but the thing is, Riley McGree, when he was sold from Adelaide United to Charlotte FC, I think it was, before he did his sort of loan moves in England. He was sold for 820,000 US, Aussie, sorry, I should say. And he was a much more complete, rounded player at that point versus Ariath Piol, who looks fantastic, but has been in the league for about 5 minutes and scored a wonder goal, which I'm sure doubled his value just there. So what that says to me is that the value of Australian players is rising. And so if you're going to sell a Thomas Waddingham, who's close to the best we've got, you better hope it's at least 4 times that amount.
Yeah.
Or with like a 50% sell-on percentage as well, so that if he does move on, you're going to get multiple millions of dollars in the door.
Absolutely. I think it's fantastic that other leagues, America, I think, historically it would be rare for a player to move from the A-League to the MLS, but the money over there now, it's obviously gone to another level, and I think it's fantastic that they're looking here for young talent. And I think that I'm a little bit surprised about this move. I think it's very early for him, but at the same time, he does have clear talent. He's such an athlete, and hopefully it all goes well, and hopefully Macarthur can reinvest that back into their squad.
Totally. There's another one to keep an eye on as well at Sydney FC, Hayden Matthews. So obviously there was huge interest in him not too long ago from Portsmouth, incidentally, as well. They seem to be scouting this market really well and trying to pick up the odd bargain. The good thing about that for Sydney FC is I think it might have been $1 million or slightly more than that the last time they bid for him. This time he's a Socceroo.
Yeah, that's
which means they did well to hang on to him, and the question is, do you wait a little bit longer or do you cash in now? Good problems to have. Maybe not if you're a Fuktale and you're looking for centre-backs, but for the club, that's what it's all about, I think, as well.
Yeah, and I think for Sydney FC's perspective, I think that, in attack they have so many options, but I think if they were to lose him defensively, I think that does leave a big hole. So definitely one to keep an eye on for Sydney fans. One
last rumour, which is an interesting one, I'm not sure how much there is in this, but it was reported out of Italy, so it's not like we've been sitting around here dreaming up scenarios we want to happen. But Matty Ryan obviously hasn't seen a lot of game time in Roma. There's reports out of there that he could be moving and suggestions that it might be to Australia. I'd be really surprised if that was to happen. I couldn't see him going anywhere other than Sydney FC or the Mariners, who both have good young goalkeepers at the moment. But he might be going somewhere, so watch this space.
One to keep an eye on.
Just a call out as well for next week. Please drop your questions in for the mailbag segment in the comments section on YouTube, or hit us up via social media or any other way, whatever. Just give us some good questions. We don't have any time for them this week because the show is so packed, but that gives you a lot of time to think of good ones. So look forward to answering one or more of them next week. Make sure you check out Dub Zone this week. Here's a taste of what they had to talk about regarding all the action in the Ninja A-League.
Coming up this week on Dub Zone, Melbourne City win their top-of-the-table clash against the Roar thanks to some Letitia McKenna magic. The Reds continue their rise as they beat the informed Phoenix at home, and Sydney FC are no longer propping up the table, but they've still got some work to do. As always, Teo and Teresa are with us again. Teresa, your highlight from the weekend.
How good was it to see Caitlin Douglas back in the league for Perth Glory? And she's back with a goal as well. So good.
It's a real feel-good episode of Dub Zone this week because the Alyssa Wynnum celebration also had everyone really just feeling the joy and euphoria of football. But it doesn't mean we're letting everyone off the hook. One team and one panellist is facing the music, I imagine.
I think you may see some of that as well. It is another huge show ahead. Catch us on 10 Play, the official YouTube channel for the A-Leagues and aleagues.com.au website.
For now, though, Tommy, extra time. Let's launch in. We'll start back at Sydney FC. Joe Lolly, is he the best player in the league right now, do you think?
Yes, For me, simple. Yes, I think that he's the X factor in most games he plays. So simple as that.
It's a bit hard to find any. It seems like a league at the moment where there's not too many out-and-out superstars, which is a little bit different to the league in years gone by.
I think that the difference, what differentiates him from us, I think, other promising attacking players in the league is the end product. He gets goals, he gets assists. That's it.
Yeah. David Ball has been released from his contract at Wellington Phoenix. What did you think about this? My thoughts were a little bit strange that Giancarlo Italiano wasn't there for the press conference. The CEO was to farewell a club great.
And I think that very underappreciated player in the league. I think he's a fantastic player, and I'm actually surprised that he hasn't been more involved because I think he's exactly the kind of player that they've been missing in their games in recent weeks. So there's definitely something that's gone on behind the scenes there that we're not privy to, but obviously wish him all the best, and I'm sure Wellington fans are really sad to see him go. The
transfer window opening means that Melbourne Victory is able to register Mitch Langerak in their squad. Do you think they should bring him straight into the starting 11, or has Jack Duncan shown enough, particularly on the weekend, made some great saves to keep his place?
Mitch Langerak has to come in. I understand, that can sound very harsh, but I think Mitch is one of the best goalkeepers in the whole of Asia. So, that's just the way football goes sometimes. But at the same time, Jack Duncan's done his stocks wonders, I think, in recent times.
How many teams in the league at the moment, we're about halfway through the season, are in the title race? And let's define this as can finish top, because top 6, obviously, you're in the title race.
Yeah, so how many points behind first are the Wanderers? They're in 8th at the moment, I think.
Don't know off the top of my head.
I think they're six-ish. I think
For me, it's anyone above them, basically. Okay, there's 7 teams.
I think with their form in recent weeks, I'll put the top 8. I think anyone in the top 8 could win.
You reckon Wanderers are still in the mix?
I think Sydney FC is still my pick. I think they've got too much quality, but I think that Wanderers could go on a run. So anything's possible.
That's the thing. We said it before. This league, man, it's insane. Like literally anything can happen. Half of them, they have leagues overseas where they spend way more money but don't have that. And you can't buy that.
That's true.
It's really important.
Yeah.
Mark Milligan, we've spoken about him a fair bit on this show. He's gone from Adelaide United, as we mentioned last week. But who do you think, with him gone, is the next cab off the rank in terms of assistant coaches in A-League land who are ready for a vacancy? While you think, my vote's Matt Smith.
You actually just took the words from my mouth.
Yeah. Well, he's got experience too in terms of Thailand previously as well.
He knows the league well. He's got a good manner about him. I think I always thought he was going to become a coach, and I think that's the natural choice.
Job done, Tommy. Well played.
Great.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.